Shea Dixon, go 247 for all your recruiting needs. It's recruiting season, summertime, camps, commitments. It all comes pretty fast, and Shea is all over it. He joins us now. Shea D, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
My baseball team's not doing so hot, so I'm not doing great, but
Nope.
we'll get on. But Brian Kelly's doing pretty good because he pulled a running back into the boat. How is anyone breaking Nick Brissett records? He was scoring like 5 touchdowns a week for 6 years.
It's pretty impressive. Trey Holly's been very good coming out of Union Parish. That's Class 3A, and he's been everything from Class 3A MVP to Class 3A state championship game MVP. I think they were back-to-back runner-up finishers the past couple of seasons. I mean, he was playing varsity ball in 8th grade. He's been a 3-year starter now. And I look at Hunt, when you think of this kind of production, this doesn't have a ton, which if you have this kind of production, you're getting up there into the Nick Brissett territory, and got Kenny Hilliard had run for a lot of yards in high school, both those guys. But 900, this is his career, and freshman, sophomore, junior year of starting. 923 carries, 7,829 yards, 108 touchdowns, 8.5 yards per carry. Oh, and he's also almost to 800 yards and 8 touchdowns receiving. So 5'8", 180 with that kind of stats. I don't know what you want the comp to be, but there was no doubt that Frank Wilson and the staff made him a priority and wanted to get him as the first running back commitment in.
What type of back is he?
I mean, I think he can do it. Every time you say someone's 5'8", 180, then you're like, oh, he's going to be a Clyde, right? Or, and I guess Corey Kiner was kind of built in that mold. But, I mean, I think he can do a little bit of it all. And I think that at the next level, I think in college and the NFL, regardless, I think anytime you look at those two levels of sport right now, you don't have a guy who's carrying it 20-something times a game anymore unless you've got Leonard Fournette, unless you've got Geis or, there are guys that in that Jeremy Hill. There are times where you're getting 20-something carries. I think we're in the era now of college football that's a little bit more like the NFL, where guys are splitting carries. Like this year, it won't be a shock if Emory gets 15 to 18 carries a game or something like that, and then everybody else is getting some run as well. So I think he's a guy that, fits very well into kind of a 1-2 punch role. And because of his size, he's kind of hard to get your hands on and get down, and that's kind of how Clyde made his money. So it'll be interesting to see. Like, he's got a senior year ahead of him. He's going to continue to develop, and then he comes in for next season. So if you've got Emory on his way out, you'll see where you're at with Noah Kane and Trey Bradford kind of going on to their back end of their careers, and then you got Armani Goodwin. So you would think at least there'd be a chance for him to kind of get his feet wet early on.
We know how important recruiting the state of Louisiana is for LSU. I'm looking at the 247 top 10 right now, the guys in the state. Which one of those guys you think will be like must-have gets for this recruiting class for LSU to really feel good about what they did?
It's so interesting, Jeremy, with this year's kind of top players in Louisiana. They have one top 10. The only guy in the top 10 who's committed anywhere right now is Omarion Miller, a wide receiver out of North Cato. And he's number 7 overall prospect in the state and committed to LSU. Everybody else is wide open, even into the top 15 guys. Trey Holly just committing to LSU, and then Ricky Collins at Woodlawn has been committed to Purdue for a while. He's being recruited by other schools, LSU included. But to just have a few guys out of the top 15 going into the summer that are still uncommitted makes it seem like, okay, this in-state class could go a number of ways. I think everybody would probably point to Arch Manning and say that'd be nice, right, to have the number 1 overall prospect in the country, the number 1 player in the state. I don't think that happens. So then you move down the list, and the next guy in the rankings, at least, would be Shelton Sampson over at Catholic High. And he's been kind of the talk of the town here in Baton Rouge for a couple seasons now. He's a legit 6'4". His dad played college ball, was a really good player here in the city. So I think that everything, runs a impressive 40. He's got some really solid combine times, and obviously the film's there. So number 3 receiver in the country. You love getting the receivers out of Louisiana if they then turn into the Jarvis and Odells and DJ Charks and Chase and Jeffersons of the world. And I think Sampson's kind of right in that mix. So I would circle him, but there's a lot. I mean, you've got a few quarterbacks, Eli Holstein and Collins. You've got Jaden Osbury, Tackett Curtis are a couple of the better linebackers in the whole country. They've got some offensive linemen out there like Tyree Adams and Valance Hurd. So, you could sort of go up and down the list and make a case for everyone. I think if I'm LSU, I would circle Sampson as the guy who probably makes the biggest splash, and the reality is like Bama's on him, A&M's on him. If you're not getting him, he's going to a school that you're playing every year.
What's the latest on Arch Manning?
They don't pay me enough for that, Hunt. I don't know. Lately he said that it's kind of been Bama, Georgia, Texas. And Eli Holstein was here in Baton Rouge at Zachary and visited LSU over the weekend. And I guess LSU's trying to put a foot into the door there, a one-time A&M commit. But a lot of people have thought that Eli might end up at Alabama. And if that happens, does that mean Arch isn't going there? Georgia's in the mix. For some reason, I've always thought he would end up at Texas. I don't know. Early on, they had showed a lot of interest. They seemed to like Sark a lot. The idea, I think for me, him not being in the SEC would take a little pressure off just the Manning name. We haven't seen Tennessee or Ole Miss become some major player. So I always kind of like Texas, but I'm just guessing. But from Arch's mouth, Bama, Georgia, Texas, are the teams he's recently circled as kind of the teams pushing him the hardest, and the teams that maybe more specifically that he's really set to take official visits to here soon.
Shea Dixon, Go247 is our guest. What's the calendar like for LSU in terms of camps and all that kind of stuff this summer?
Yeah, so right now they're in the eval period, which all the assistant coaches, not head coach, but everybody else gets out on the road and goes all over and watches spring games or practices or workouts, or you run track and field, whatever it might be. They're making school stops and getting those visits and evals in, picking up paperwork on where academics stand. So you kind of get through this month and you can kind of reset the board a little bit in terms of, okay, these are the guys we're going to really go after. But then that's going to shuffle quickly because June brings camp season. I believe June 3rd. I could pull it up. But right, that first week of June, they'll have a skills camp, and it kind of gets going right away. And then the middle of June is when they'll have the big elite camp. And but all of those camp dates, I think there's probably 6 or 7 of them, whether it's O-line, D-line, or 7-on-7, or a kicking, a specialist camp. All of those are squeezed in sort of like a 4-week period there in June. And that, we've seen it before. I mean, that just goes such a long way in determining where guys are on the big board, what guys end up committing, who they end up offering from in-state or outside the state that they sort of then start pressing for. So we've got a feel for kind of what the board and kind of their top targets have looked like. But I always say that the months of May and June just kind of completely often turn that upside down, and we're sort of in the middle of that right now.
I know National Signing Day and the first signing day is months and worlds away from now, but getting a look at Coach Kelly, where do you think they're possibly going to finish in the 2023 recruiting class overall?
With Trey Holly's commitment, they're up to number 14. I think that was the number 5 class in the SEC. But at the same time, if you look at a lot of that is, for instance, like LSU's got 5 commitments. Well, a lot of the teams in the top 10 have some double-digit commitments, many 8, 9 commitments. So I know some people like to look at kind of what the score would be like. So each player gets a grade and what the average grade of the class is. And right now I think LSU's grade was like 93 something, which would have been behind Alabama and Clemson, and I think Southern Cal, and then LSU would be sitting at 4. But Bama's got and Clemson both have like 3 commits, so their actual class ranking is in the mid-30s. So if you're trying to just get a feel for kind of the quality so far, I mean, LSU's put together, with 5 guys on paper, one of the top 5, classes in terms of overall talent. Now, you've got a long way to go, whether it's signing a full 25 high school guys and then replacing up to 7 transfers and they stick with that ruling or whatever it might be. You're going to add a lot more high school guys from here. And I think they'll end up settling into that same range that we've seen in recent years. We'll see if NIL plays a big deal. And, some of these guys or let's not say some, let's say if it plays a big deal and a lot of guys deciding, hey, I'm not doing it in December and now I'm going all the way to February to feel things out. I bet they end up signing between, 16 and 20 guys for December. And that gives you that wiggle room to go to February and know, okay, here's the high school guys we have left. Here's how many kind of transfer guys we need to target as, immediate impact replacements for guys we're losing to the draft, which you don't find out until, mid-January about. So I think to be safe, most schools are trying to land in that, sign 15 to 20 guys. And then kind of reset things when you get to January and start finding out who's really going to be on the team again and what spots you need to fill.
Look, it's a new era of college football, and everything's on the table. They're looking at changing everything from and one of the issues that I saw that was being raised was potentially doing away with a 25-man limit because transfers are so prevalent. What have you heard about that, and what are your thoughts on changing the limit from 25?
I mean, I like what they're doing right now, or what we just kind of tested out, right? That you're capped at 25, but if you have a transfer that goes out, you can replace them. You get 26 guys, and that can go up to 7 transfers. And I think 7's enough to. Like some schools are going to lose double-digit guys to transfers, some might lose less. I think that's a good kind of average, and that's enough to. If you've lost, more than 7 guys, replacing with 7 guys that you think are going to be really helpful, and in a lot of cases may be more helpful to you than the guys who had left, who maybe weren't seeing playing time or whatever it was. I like that approach. And then you end up with around 32 guys. Right now, LSU's at 30. And even with 30, we feel like they've done a really good job. It's almost split. I think it might be split 50-50 at 15 transfers and 15 signees. But point being, we feel like they've done with 30 spots a good job of addressing all the needs and still getting some high school guys in that they can develop. So I like that approach. And I think the approach at Hunt that would scare me the most is that if they dock it all and just say, hey, look, do what you want to do, just be at 85 scholarships for the fall. And, God, you could have the whole Ole Miss days. You're signing 38 dudes in a class or something. And, you're just basically leveraging the portal and as many high school kids as you can to just redo your team every year. I would fear that's not sustainable for a lot of programs. I think it would make college football a messier product. So I kind of, if we're going to have to live in this one-time free transfer, NIL, portal era that's all happening at the exact same time, I think they were onto something with that the normal 25-man limit and then up to 7 replacements with transfers.
Thanks for your time, Shea. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks. As always, guys, we'll talk soon.
Thanks so much for watching Hunt Hill on YouTube.
Now do us a favor. Hit the red subscribe button below and throw us a like. We'll see you next time.